G'day guys, welcome back to our channel, Star Wars Vault Unleashed. My name is Harris Gofty and I'm your host, coming straight here from Sydney, Australia. This episode 33, I am so excited to meet another vintage collector from United States of America. You can probably see it already on the screen that his background kind of reminds me of a toy shop. When you walk in there, back in the 70s or even the 80s, my gosh, it took me back. With that said, I can't wait for you guys to check out this episode. Please meet Eric Komroy from Buffalo, New York State. Hey, Eric, how are you?
Thanks so much for having me, Harris. This is great. I've been following your channel. I love what you're doing. We know Star Wars goodness always comes in threes. So 33, I think it's going to be a fun episode.
You bet. Hey, can't wait for the audience to hear about your stories, Eric. And of course, again, just seeing your background, my gosh, it kind of took me back to that moment, those goodness, the vintage goodness, right?
Yeah, so that's what I kind of tried to do, is convert my whole basement into a 1980s Star Wars museum. So I'm glad you like the look already.
Absolutely. All right. Hey, Eric, why don't you tell us about you?
All right. Well, I live, like you said, I live in Buffalo, New York. I've lived here my whole life. I have been a Star Wars fan my whole life. In fact, my aunt took me to see Star Wars on the big screen when it first came out in '77, and I was only 3 years old, and that is still my very first memory. So growing up, it was a big part of my life. It really sparked my imagination, and I was the perfect target demo for Kenner toys. So I was very into the toys, and I felt like it gave me freedom to be my own storyteller. I'd line them up, and I could have Ewoks take over an AT-AT, or do whatever I want, tell my own story. So I was really into the Star Wars universe as a kid, and they sucked me in totally with the toys.
Right.
But at the time, as a collector, I really played with everything.
Okay. And Eric, I just based on our offline chat, I know that you also run a special school. Well, it's actually not a school, but it's an academy for that's related to Star Wars.
Well, yeah, I've been an instructor at the American Force Academy, which we are, there's no in-person with the pandemic lightsaber combat going on now, but my friend Kevin started the school back in like 2016. So we had a great run there for about 4 or 5 years, where got to meet all sorts of interesting people and blend our love of Star Wars with real martial arts and sword traditions. So that's been a big part of my Star Wars passion over the last 5 years, is learning how to use a lightsaber in combat.
Wow, that's super awesome. Eric, so back to collecting. Obviously, since you've been playing with Star Wars Kenner since back in the days. Obviously, you had all the figures sort of open, yeah. But when did you actually start collecting, carded backs and all that other stuff?
So I think back in the early '90s, I was in college, and I really kind of fell back in love with Star Wars. I had my dark times where it wasn't a big part of my life, but I just started connected again with like Luke Skywalker, and being a young person trying to figure out my way in the world, standing there looking at the twin suns, and it really, that the kind of Joseph Campbell's hero's journey spoke to me.
Right.
And, I thought, well, this could be like a cool hobby to get back at. I was already nostalgia from my childhood, even though I was in my. So at the time in the '90s, before the Hasbro relaunched everything, Star Wars collecting was kind of dead, and everybody I knew had a boat full of their kids' toys in their parents' garage or basement. that they were willing to part with for, a few bucks beer money. When we were
Yeah.
all in college, I really started acquiring collections from people I knew. Then I put flyers around college and local colleges, and before I knew it, I've got 3 or 4 of every figure, and so I'm selling
Nice.
and other collectors going to toy shows, and it really became a hobby of trying to track down every figure. And every time I'd acquire a collection or buy something, I'd keep the best one of each piece for myself. And sometimes there'd be a carded one, and that's how I kind of got started. And then I was able to reinvest all those, selling all the extras into getting some of the other stuff. So luckily, I was able to acquire most of this stuff in the 90s and early 2000s when it really wasn't selling for the premiums that it does
Of
today.
course, yeah. Oh wow.
And I when I was in college, I worked at Kmart, which is like a retail store
Yeah.
in the States. And I remember, I was really into Star Wars, and the Hasbro line was just coming out. And I was working there waiting. Yeah, I worked in the toy department, actually. I was waiting for the toys to come out. But, it was kind of secretive at the time. There was no internet really to track up on things. And a guy came into the store and he said, "You have any of those new Star Wars yet?" And I was like, "Oh, no, but I'm really dying for him to get here." He's like, "Oh, well, I was just down the street and I saw them. I didn't even know they were coming out." And it was just like, I didn't even think. I was like a samurai pulling out his sword. I whipped out my wallet. I didn't even know the guy's name. I handed him $100. Go get me one of everyone.
Awesome.
It turned out that we started like a real long friendship, and he turned out to be a collector and a buyer and seller of toys. So like a long-term friendship and business partnership over this chance meeting where I just gave a stranger,
Wow.
"Go get me some toys," So, I've been collecting all that time.
Wow. And that's the thing, right? With Star Wars, I think it brings us so much closure to strangers. And of course, with the whole community of collectors across the world.
Yeah, I mean that's what really makes Star Wars special to me, is how you can connect to other people with it.
Yeah.
And that was what's cool about training with people with lightsabers. Because some people would, more into the martial arts aspect and more into the Star Wars aspect, but we could all, it just you meet so many great people in this community.
Sure. Hey, Eric, so back then, what were your sort of like first sort of few figures that you had on hand that you used to play with, and which one was your favorite?
Well, I remember, I think like Luke, the Tatooine Luke was my probably first favorite. And I had a handful of the Cantina guys. I remember going through a couple Walrus Men because one of his arms broke off.
Sure.
And one of the few toys that I still have now from when I was a kid is the original X-Wing fighter. So that's a
Wow.
special piece of collection because I remember getting that for Christmas and it being a really big deal. So
Okay.
when all the first couple movies came out, anytime I could get a figure, that was something special and exciting.
Well, you know what, Eric, I can't wait for the audience to see what you got. And thanks again for telling us that awesome story from way back then. And of course, can't wait to see the X-Wing, the old vintage X-Wing from since your childhood days. Eric,
Yeah.
take us through your room. I can't wait.
All right.
Hey, wow. Check out all those Legos.
So, all right. So, just to kind of give you a scale of the whole room here,
Jeez.
that I live in a pretty big house. It's almost 100 years old, so it's just a matter of me finding space in the basement here to
Sure.
fit in my whole collection. And
Oh my
everything
gosh.
80s that I do collect a few other franchises here. I'll just give you the full
jeez.
look around. And
Wow.
do a few modern lines, but there's some other 80s nostalgia kind of stuff there.
Jesus. Look at
Lightsabers. And a little bit of everything else. So
wow.
I'll start over here because I had a guy recently tell me it looks like the most expensive wallpaper you'll ever see. And that's always, I think the highlight of, the kind of core of my collection is the full run of the 78 to 85 line,
Sure.
all carded. And I was able to, as I said, obtain most of these before they were too crazy. Up there, you probably know the story of the early bird set.
Yes.
And I think that's such a cool, fun story. I always like to point that out to people who don't necessarily know about it. Now, I'm not too picky about, my card backs or how, what kind of shape they're in, if they have a price sticker or something like that. But I do like to find ones that don't have an offer on them.
Right.
And I know I was watching one of your episodes, and he was such a spectacular collector. He got like the first 20 all with the Boba Fett offer on them.
That's right.
But I'm like, that is passion. So I do like to, when I can, when I was tracking these down, I did like to find ones that didn't have an offer on them. And I do like Empire Strike Back cards when I can find them too. So
Sure.
think of the first 12, I have like 8 or 9 that are on offerless cards from Empire.
Wow. Any of your pieces graded, Eric?
No, I don't have, I do have a 12-inch piece that's graded, but everything else, because I know it's legit and I know that I got it, legit. If I was collecting nowadays, I'd be kind of scared to death of buying stuff on eBay or somewhere else because people are so good at being able to make reproductions. So much stuff out there.
You've got Power of the Force, Last 17 as well, and droids.
Yeah. Yeah, the droids figures are really tough. My R2 fell out there a little bit, but I told this story in my video when I did a tour for my YouTube station, but these two are really tough to come by. The CZ and From and Side From, and I got those when I had a booth at the flea market. A guy came in, and he was actually a coin collector. So he had bought all the line and taken all the coins out, and he kept the carded figures like in a box. He's like, "Hey, do you want these? I only wanted the coins." So
Wow.
to get them without the coins. And then a few years later, I bought a collection that had the 2 coins in there, just those 2. And those were the only 2 I was missing. It worked out great that I was able to get those.
Jeez.
And then I was able, because we're close to Canada, to pull off some trades and get the Yak Face and Anakin cards to kind of complete my collection. Because, of course, those were not things that we got in the States with the Power of the Force coin.
Sure.
And they were such a premium.
Eric, with your story, with the swap of the figures and the coins, that's amazing, because I think you guys are very fortunate in the US, having so many flea markets, and of course the collecting landscape over there is much larger compared to Australia, right? So here is like if you go out to a flea market trying to find something that I think it's just impossible to come by.
A lot of that, I get a lot of comments on videos and stuff from foreign collectors that just say, Boy, man, you are lucky.
Yeah.
And what's kind of happened here in the States, which is an interesting phenomena, I'll just keep kind of walking through as
Sure.
is a lot of balls have been converted into almost like flea markets. So
Mm.
you have a bunch of shops in them now. Instead of having like a big J.C. Penney's, they'll have a bunch of display cases where vendors are just selling lots of collectibles, and you could find a lot of toys.
Mm.
But of course, now everybody just looks it up and sees what it's selling for on eBay, so it's not like you get a deal.
Yeah.
But you know, at least I don't have to pay shipping all the way to Australia, right? Mate.
Sure. Wow.
So I do have just about all the figures and vehicles in the box. You know, they might not necessarily be mint in the box. You know, all the boxes have been opened, but they all have the toys in there, and I keep track of whether I have the inserts or the instruction manuals in case I'm out at a show or something and I see, oh, I need a Rancor instructions, and I'm able to pick that up or upgrade it.
Yeah.
There
You know,
are
funny you mentioned about the condition, Eric, because one thing I actually noticed, you know, when you just kind of like swing the camera around, the conditions tends to be very, very good there, you know, with a lot of the boxes.
Yeah, and there, you know, like I said, over the years of buying, selling, and trading, maybe I handled 2 or 3 or 4 Jabba the Hutt play sets in the box, and I kept the best one for me, and you know, sold the other. So, you know, a lot of them, you know, they're pretty good. A lot of them are kind of beat up. So actually, these 3 up here, this AT-AT was mine. I'm saving up my Christmas and birthday money and going to Child World and getting that. That was probably one of my favorite toys. I mean, the mold, the scale, it's just so
Absolutely.
cool. And, you know, still holds up today. And then way up here, that's the X-Wing I told you about. And I don't know if I put on the stickers myself when I was a kid, but I always know this X-Wing because one of the stickers is on wrong. So that, but that always going to be one of my favorite pieces.
Of course. There's so much sentimental value there, right?
Yeah, because, you know, all these toys, you know, for the most part are not things, you know, I played with all my toys, so I didn't have them in the package. So
yeah.
Any other questions about vintage before I move? Oh, I didn't get over here to some of the other scales. So I do have the Han Solo.
The Han Solo, yep.
And the carry case and the biker scout.
Nice.
The other cases, you know, the bandolier strap.
Yep.
Wow. So one thing I do not have is a full set of the 12-inch figures, but Princess Leia here is graded, and it's a true gem and a beauty, and one of the shining jewels of my collection. I really like that. I do have a nice Boba Fett there, and Old Ben was one of probably my favorite characters, so I'm glad I do have that. But I have a few more. I don't have everything, so I gotta look for a Han Solo and a Jawa and a Stormtrooper.
Sure.
Do have the diecast collection, and then all of the micro collection except for the Snowspeeder. That's a really tough one to come by.
That Bespin World box, just go up a little bit.
Yeah, so what they did.
Yeah, I hardly see that one around.
Yeah, so they had 4 separate Bespin play sets, or 3 separate, and they would sell them separately, or you could buy them all together as a world. And it was the same with the Death Star. So you can buy, you know, just the freezing chamber, or you can buy the whole world together. They didn't, I don't think they did that with the Hoth world. So there was 4 different Hoth pieces that you had to get. But parents hated these because they were a whole different scale.
Of course.
No, I'm not going to buy you 3 3/4-inch figures and those. I think that was part of the problem with the 12-inch figures too, why they didn't sell so. Oh, just one other. I always love to tell this story. I told it in my video too.
Mm,
One of my favorite pieces here is Reese, and
sure.
not because um, necessarily one of my favorite figures, but when I was working at Kmart in college in the '90s, they remodeled the store. They ripped out all of the old displays, and they found this guy underneath.
Wow.
Uh, he'd been hibernating there for about 10 years, so they let me. They knew I was a Star Wars fanatic, and they let me um, just have him. And so he's always been part of my
Wow.
collection. So even if I found a better Reese that didn't have a dented up bubble or a
Yeah,
offer
you
on it,
wouldn't
I
even.
would never pick
Yeah,
up that one. Always reminds me of those days.
absolutely. Wow, that's so cool.
So when I was a kid, I always loved Legos, and I always loved to think of Star Wars as having Legos, and then I couldn't believe it when they started to actually make them. So
Yes.
I got pretty big into trying to get one of everything with Lego, and then I scaled it back and just started, getting all the best things. And when I became a father, my daughter now is 15,
Right.
but when she was growing up, her and we could spend hours together just building
Wow,
Legos,
that's
having
super
Star
awesome.
Wars battles, and it was always a lot of fun. So, I'll always be a Lego collector, and I'll always, um, if they come out with a good Lego set, they'll have me buy it, I'm sure. Kind of going over here, I got like a little um
You got all the
80s
arcades. Yeah.
theme going on here. This is by a company called One Up, and
Wow.
this is actually a new kind of item that's just come out in the last few years. And it has Star Wars, Empire Strikes Back, or Return of the Jedi from like the '70s
Sure.
with the control stick and stuff. And it's just a lot of fun. It's nostalgic, really cool. And then I have a custom made multi-cade that has just about
Oh, wow.
every video system going back um, from like Atari all the way to
Yeah.
PlayStation. So that's just a fun thing to have down here in my collection. I think my favorite toy show from the '80s was
Wow.
Robotech. Really
Of
cool.
course.
It translates well today, actually. If you ever catch it on Netflix, it's not too corny for an '80s cartoon like most of them are.
Sure.
And then, since this is a Star Wars show, I'll take you. Um, one thing,
Wow.
I have a coffee table here. I'd like to point out some of my favorite Star Wars coffee table books,
Yes.
and these are three that every Star Wars collector, if you're a vintage collector, should have.
Of
This
course.
Keller book is like the Bible for carded vintage figures.
Yeah.
Has everything. This book by Bellamo, he's come up with a lot of different versions of this book that you can buy pretty reasonably. The Kellerman book goes for a lot, but it just is a great pictures and a great guide if you're starting off collecting, to
Sure.
see what you're looking for and have it all at your fingertips. And then this book is by Steve Sansweet, who
Mhm.
is the owner of Rancho Obi-Wan.
Yes.
And I love people telling stories, and he's the best storyteller. And this book has so many great pictures and stories. And then right there, I have a little photo album of my pilgrimage to Rancho.
Nice.
So for my 40th birthday, I got to go there and meet Steve Sansweet and take the
Awesome.
tour. Boy, it was a once in a lifetime experience. I suggest it to any Star Wars fan.
Sure. Hey, Eric, just before you kind of show us the rest of your room, as you walk into the side of your dungeon, I noticed
Yeah,
that there is a Empire Strikes Back C-3PO poster or standees.
right here.
The one on
Oh
the
no!
right.
Yes,
That
I
is
can't
super
believe.
awesome.
It. So this was. Did you have Burger King in Australia?
We used to have Burger King in Australia.
Okay, so at Burger King, at least in the States, when The Empire Strikes Back came out, they had a set of 4 glasses
Correct.
that came with the movie. So you buy, whatever you bought it,
Mm-hmm.
and then you get a glass. And I remember having that Boba Fett one when I was a kid. I would always have to drink no matter what I was having. That was my favorite. But I was at a toy show a few years ago, and this is an actual standee that was in a Burger King in 1980. I was able to haggle the guy down to get a good price on it, but it's just one of a cool piece, that
Absolutely.
I never saw one before. And to think that it survived, a greasy fast food joint 40 years ago, to make it into my basement is pretty cool.
So that's why it's so, I just couldn't resist not to talk about it.
Yeah. And then there's a R2D2 cooler that I picked up at a flea market. I was just walking by and love to pull that out for parties, and
Awesome.
people could reach in there and get a drink. And then this is my collection of lightsabers. Most of these are by a company called Ultrasabers, and they are fully combat functional. This one is my new favorite.
Wow.
And looks like a katana and has all the features. It's by a company called the Pack Store, and just a really cool part of the hobby for people who are, into martial arts, to be able to incorporate their love of Star Wars along with it.
Wow, that's super cool.
Yeah, and then just lots of little odds and ends, a little Mando display up there, the Mandalorian or a Sing book, and that big newer Slave One.
Slave One, yeah.
Video books, a little bit of everything. So that's pretty much it.
Wow. Well, you know what? I think if you say that's pretty much it, I think that's an understatement, Eric.
Well, thank you.
It's amazing. Wow. Oh my gosh. Well, anyway, thank you so much, Eric, for taking us through your room. That is just mind-blowing. That wall, whoever mentioned that that's probably the most expensive wallpaper in the world, he's probably right. It looks amazing.
Yeah, that's what I have when you first walk into the basement, is that wall. So that is my wow moment when you come down here.
Folks, there you go. You saw it yourself with your own eyes. That was Eric's dungeon. It's not even a Star Wars room. It's right downstairs, and it's just full of it. Wow, amazing, Eric. Well done, man.
Thank you so much, Harris.
Yeah. Hey, Eric, let's jump into rapid questions, shall we?
All right.
Do you think Star Wars collecting is an addiction?
Before we started, I did mention to you that I am a mental health professional. So
sure.
I have to say, an addiction is like a repetitive behavior that has negative consequences to yourself or others. So for me, collecting, I find to be a compulsion, an obsession, but it doesn't hurt me and it doesn't hurt anybody else. In fact, it brings me a lot of joy. For me, it's not an addiction, but it's not entirely healthy either, as you can
see. No worries. Okay, so Eric, next question. Which, if you have to choose one piece out of your whole room, which one would you say is the most valuable, or not so much monetary wise, but something that is really meaningful and close to your heart?
Do I have to pick just one?
Just the one.
It really comes down to, like I said, my X-Wing fighter from when I was a kid, or the piece I found under a display at Kmart, or my 12-inch Princess Leia, and all because of the stories of how I got them or what makes them special to me. So probably
Okay.
one of those three would be my favorite.
Okay, but you still haven't answered the question. Which one is it?
Oh man, yeah. I can only take one to a desert island. Yeah, I think I'll go with my 12-inch Leia.
Awesome, cool. Hey, Eric, have you ever hide your Star Wars purchases from your family?
You know what? We have a kind of relationship where I'm able to spend spend. She trusts me to spend freely, and she's really not
Sure.
interested in the details of the minutia of my Star Wars purchases. So um, as long as I stay within budget and
Yeah.
everything's cool. And I have to tell you, over the years doing so much buying and selling and trading, a lot of this got here at like a zero net cost. So um,
Yeah.
when we maybe there's been times where I've been able to sell parts of my collection that maybe aren't important to me anymore. Never a vintage thing, but
Yeah.
stuff. And my wife appreciates. Wow, that's worth that much.
Mm.
So although she's not a Star Wars fan or passionate about it, like my daughter is, she does accept me for my passion.
That's awesome to hear. Okay. What would you say is your next big piece, in your bucket list that you haven't got in your possession as yet?
Well, I would like to finish off saying that I have all the vintage stuff. And by doing that, I need a few more 12-inch vintage figures. So I need a Han Solo and a Jawa and and some parts for Luke. So I'm always on the hunt for some nice looking 12-inch vintage figures. That IG-88, that is going to be a tough one to
Yeah.
come by.
Sure.
I never was able to find one at a good price, and of course, never picked one up in a collection. So maybe that IG-88 12-inch is kind of a bucket list item. Yeah.
Awesome. Cool. Well, there you go, folks. If you have any of those items that Eric just mentioned,
Yeah.
hit him up. Okay, Eric, in the recent Mandalorian season 2, I'm going to ask you this because you are, obviously you run American Force Academy. You're into martial arts, and your passion towards sort of like Akira Kurosawa. I can see the poster at the back over there before, and of course the swords, the katanas and stuff, and mixing with Star Wars. Who do you think fought well between Ahsoka and the Magistrate?
Well, if we're going to talk about any fight scene from The Mandalorian, seeing Luke just destroy everything in sight
Yeah.
was a thrilling fight scene in Star Wars history, except for maybe Vader in Rogue One.
Right.
Because that's how I always pictured a Jedi or a Sith in my head as a kid, like
Sure.
in the prime power,
Yeah.
So that scene with Luke, absolutely amazing. The choreography for Ahsoka is very it's not very realistic, but
Sure.
it looks so cool. So
Yeah.
as a martial artist, I would kind of poo-poo it and say, well, that's not a real fighting style, or you wouldn't want to hold anything with a reverse grip. But damn, does it not look cool or what? And just I still get goosebumps thinking about hearing the lightsabers ignite and seeing a live action Ahsoka. So many great moments in
Yeah.
Mandalorian too. And it's so great that there's still good Star Wars being made because sometimes they do let us down.
Of course. Of course. Okay. What would you say is your favorite Star Wars movie, Eric?
I have to go with the first one, A New Hope. Just I love the hero's journey, and it's of all the movies, it's a complete tale, kind of beginning to end, and like I said, it spoke to me as a kid. It spoke to me as a young adult, and it still speaks to me now, being 47, and a father. So it never fails to always continue to inspire me.
Awesome. Cool. What advice do you have for collectors out there, who just starting out, or even just, or already a professional collector, in fact?
Yeah, well, I think it's really important that you collect what brings you joy. I think it's really important as a collector to hone what you collect to things that you can display, that you have room for, so they're not sitting around in totes or
Yeah.
in boxes, and that if it's going to be your hobby and your passion, you're going to invest a lot monetarily into it. That you find a way to enjoy it, whether it's making great displays, building shelves, going to conventions, toy shows, meeting other collectors. I think the darkest days of my collecting was when I wasn't enjoying it. Was maybe like when I was still collecting newer Hasbro figures, and there was just like millions of them, and I couldn't display them anywhere, and it just felt like I was buying stuff to buy it. So I think once I got a vision in my head, is I'm only going to collect this and this and this, and then really limiting, being disciplined too about what you want to collect, and then I think the last thing is don't be afraid to kind of cross over to the dark side and also be a seller. So if you're going to be a collector, sometimes you could pick up a lot, several figures all at once at a tremendous discount. And say you have one or two, then you could sell those once, and then kind of recoup some of that investment, and your dollar can go a lot further, because we all have a budget, and so, and make friends. You can trade. A lot of these from people that I've come to know and knew that I was looking for a piece, and we were able to work out a trade or a gift or something like that. So connect with people. That's what Star Wars is all about. We talked about that a little bit in the beginning. It surrounds us and binds us, and I think that if you're not enjoying it, why do it?
Exactly. We're here for a reason, right? Because we enjoy it. We love it.
We love it. We love it.
Exactly. All right, folks, there you go. That was episode 33 with Eric Komroy. Eric, I want to thank you so much for your time and taking us through your dungeon. It's just amazing to see, again, your passion, to hear your stories. And also, one more thing, I want to wish you all the best as well with American Force Academy, right? I know it's we're probably in the process of recovery right now. Hopefully, when the things go back to normal, American Force Academy can just stand up again and just kind of train all the young Padawans and young Jedis out there. And, folks, make sure you check that out. I'm going to put his, all things about American Force Academy down below. So wish you all the best with that, Eric.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, my arm's a little sore today because I got my first vaccine shot. So I'm happy about that. Things are turning around.
Awesome. That's good. All right, folks, thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed that episode. If you do, please do give it a big thumbs up, subscribe to our channel, check us out on Instagram and Facebook as well. I look forward to catching up with you all again in next episode 34, where we're going to interview another collector from Australia. So with that, may the force be with you, Eric, and thanks once again.
May the force be with you always.
Take care. May the force be with you all.